Welcome, legends. Ghost have just released their new album, IMPERA, and it's out now through Loma Vista Recordings and Virgin Music Australia. It's been absolutely dominating. We caught up with the Swedish frontman, Tobias Forge, about the new album. So, Tobias, you're currently on tour in the US and you're already playing the new songs. How does it feel for you to finally play live again on a real stage in front of an audience after all these months?
Great, I must say. I think that I speak for most of us on the entourage, if not everyone. When you are a touring musician, you're either born like that or you're not. The same way that if you're a seaman, you have sea legs, right? You're attracted to the sea. You love the smell of sea air. And it's the same thing when you're a touring person. So it feels good to be out on tour again, being a transient person, changing, cities every day. I've always liked that, and that's where I belong, even though I love being at home as well. And I must say that 2 years together with my family has been priceless. Honestly, for me, 2 years at home was phenomenal. It was really good for me and my family and my kids and my wife. But I need to work as well, not only for monetary reasons, but for this is who I am. This is what I can do. I can't really do anything else. I don't function as a person doing most other things, but this is what I do. And so we're back to normal now. I mean, in terms of my role, my sense of purpose and all that. So it feels really good to be back on that, feeling like I'm doing what me as a dog should do. Bark a little, yell a little, bite a little, and then I can become like a nice puppy on the couch, feeling content over a good day's work.
So in your live shows, there are certain recurring characters that always appear. Sometimes it's a pope, sometimes it's a cleric. What incarnation are we seeing at the moment?
Well, I mean, the current pope is the same person who was a cardinal in the previous one. Yeah, he got promoted. That's what happened in March 2020 in Mexico. He got new clothes and he got face paint, but he's the same character.
So I've also read that all of your cover artwork is based on posters for well-known films. Is that the case with IMPERA?
It's not really true. It's just that we end up, just because I have a certain sort of humor, and also the artist that does a lot of or most of our record sleeves, Zbigniew, be like a Polish artist. We share the same humor in a way. So whenever there is an idea, it's always like, okay, so in this case, there was going to be a big statue inside the church, inside the biggest and most expensive building in the town. There's going to be a big statue of gold of this dictator. And that's where all the money went, And outside you see the city just filled with industrial landscapes and, kind of poor and gloomy, and all the money has gone to this statue. And then it becomes like, oh, what pose should he be in? Yeah, let's put him in like the classic sort of, iconic Aleister Crowley pose. And last time we were talking more like from concepts of the plague and more medieval looking, and I wanted it to be very traditional medieval looking with gaping devilish mouth and all that. And then he said, well, I'm going to sneak in a little reaper in there. And just because he added that, it looks similar in color and composition to Bestial Devastation by Sepultura, which is my first tattoo ever. So it's like, we never said, oh, let's make a replica of Bestial Devastation. It was he added that little few details because he thought it was funny. And when I saw it, it was just like, okay, of course, sure. But then on the other hand, Infestissimum was an homage to Amadeus, just because I wanted to have a baby delivered in the front, and I had different pictures of babies, but then the pose from Amadeus just looked like, oh, that's going to look like a cool sort of way of presenting, and so it's just like very playful. It's never just a list of like, here's the things that we're going to rip off. It's more like jokingly sort of putting it together just because it's fun symbols of cool things and things that look potent and powerful. And that way it becomes a little bit of a homage to things that that we like.
So we were somewhat in the dark 15th century or so with Prequel. Where are we roughly with IMPERA? In what period of time is this album based?
Visually, it's supposed to be echoing the late 1800s sort of industrialism, and London and England was such a perfect example of exactly that. Victorian industrialism and the hope for the future, but also the downsides of industrialism, where you make people superfluous, which is kind of similar to today. A lot of our angst in society is because a lot of us has been replaced by machines. That's practical in one way, but not everyone is reaping the benefits from being replaced from a machine. So you end up having a lot of people with a lot of time to think about this, that, and the other. And I don't think that we're really cut up for all that time to ponder that much, because that leads to anger and discontent and lack of purpose. And when people have lack of purpose, that's when they start thinking that maybe we should reinstate the flat earth, because flat earth was so much better than this new world. I don't like the new world. I want it to become what it was.
I mean, that sounds pretty nostalgic.
I'm also like a nostalgic person. I wish internet wasn't here. I wish it was 1985 so I can sit at home and just draw and watch VHS movies. That would be fantastic. But that's not it. And even if you want to do the bigger strokes, one of our maniacs of today that we're currently facing here in Europe is, someone who wants to draw back the clock to his time as a KGB officer in the Soviet Union. He must be missing gray skies or something. I don't know. But he's also like doing it because of too much time, too much isolation, too fucking old, too crazy. And I think that, a lot of that nostalgia is what's troubling people. And I think that starts with being replaced. I think that starts with lack of purpose. Very little sense of purpose. That's when you feel kind of like dogs. A dog needs to feel like he's a dog, or her, that she is a dog, and she needs to bite things and yell at things and have a certain place in the flock. And if you go out and run with it and make him or her feel like a dog, and that he or she's doing what she's supposed to do, then you will have a nice dog that can lie on the carpet and be nice and smell good. But if you don't do that, you'll have a very, very, very a very bad tempered dog who will bite things and behave irrationally. And I think that people are similar. I hate to say it, but we are very canine, and we need simple things. We need order. We need a purpose. We need to feel love, and we need to know certain things. And if we just do that, the 8 hours go by, and then you need to eat, and then you need to sleep, and then you wake up and you do that, and you don't have a ton of time to think about all the things that you don't have and all the things that you are not.
I mean, when did you get the idea that IMPERA should be about all of that?
As far as I can remember, the idea came in 2014. But these ideas, like I've always been interested in history and how history, religion, and politics obviously go hand in hand. It's interwoven in a way that you cannot sort of divide them. They are connected. But conceptually, the idea of making a record about empires came in 2014. But my interest in it has been for as long as I can remember. And now when it came time to write the record, it was just opening your eyes every day to another day of madness. And then it was very easy to be inspired. You know, all the things that I got into the record, it's just a fragment of all the emotions and feelings that I could have made 10 records about. But it needs to be 40 minutes of rock and roll as well. It needs to be entertaining. At the end of the day, it's meant to be escapism.
IMPERA seems to follow a pretty straightforward process, and it's a concept again. Concept albums seem to be pretty rare these days. I mean, do you agree with that?
I always try to conceptualize records. I want it to have like a certain dramaturgical structure. Of course, sometimes you need to twist and turn things in order to make it work. So it's loosely conceptual. But in my head, it's in order to compartmentalize things and in order to have structure, I need to have it to place it in a certain way. But then you might, switch a song from one side to another because of time or because of all my records are made to fit on vinyl. So I always think of records as side A, side B, and both needs to be 23 minutes long, preferably. And so you have to think a little bit about the format, which is something that is, something that's a little bit lost nowadays. Most bands nowadays are, they're so into the idea of records being 75 minutes long just because CDs sort of allowed for that. But something happened after 1991, 1992 was that the quality of records got dramatically worse because people thought, I can do 75 minutes of music. I'll do that. It's very hard to make 75 minutes of music, the same way that most directors would say that it's hard to make a film longer than 1 hour, 30 minutes because it needs to be so fucking good that it's really hard and really expensive to justify making that. But people in bands think that it's quantity over quality, and that ends up being, a lot of records out nowadays that is on 3 records. Like if you buy a vinyl, it might be 3 albums in it, or 3 vinyl records. And on one side, it's 2 songs. On one side, it's 3 songs. On one side, it's 1 song, just because it doesn't fit the format. Now I'm sidetracking a little, but for me, it's dogmatic rules like that makes me able to write records the way I do. So it's a strong opener, and then you have a song 2, song 3, song 4, song 5, and then you flip. So you restart on the side 2 the same way that they made records up until 1991, basically. And most historic records are made before that. The records that most people love, the historic ones were made like that. And so I'm always very keen on working within that format, within that sort of dramaturgical structure, because about 40 minutes of music, that's about as much as how much people can take before they sort of lose interest.
If you compare IMPERA with some of the earlier Ghost albums, it doesn't seem to be that hard anymore. Like the style seems to be getting softer. Do you feel like that's the case?
Right. At the end of the day, I just try to write, around 10 interesting songs that I haven't written before. And I try to write the song to the best of my ability in the way that I think serves the song to be as good as it can get. And sometimes the song is asking to be softer, and sometimes the song is asking to be harder. It's kind of like solving a riddle when I write music. It feels almost like finding something that you need to excavate and explore rather than creating out of thin air. It's almost like the other way around. It feels like I'm finding something inside, and it's just like, it's not really right. And it's like you have to solve the riddle. It's hard to explain. I don't know if I'm giving you an answer really, but it's content.
Why did you name the album IMPERA? I mean, what does that mean? And is it Latin?
Latin. Taken from Divide et Impera. and it means to rule. Divide et impera meant to divide and conquer, or to divide and rule.
I mean, that sounds a lot like Julius Caesar's divide and conquer.
Yeah, I think so too. And impera, it just sounds cooler than in empire.
Well, Tobias Forge, thank you so very much for chatting with us today, and we really would love to see Ghost down under in Australia again. Congratulations on IMPERA, and yeah, like I said, hope to see you soon. Thanks so much, mate.
I'm looking forward to seeing people out there again. No, well, I mean, I think that success anywhere, if you're doing what I do, is because you do it a lot. And being an entertainer is a lot. It's a trust that you're getting from the people who are willing to be entertained by you. We're dealing, it's a deal. Like, it's up to me to make you laugh the same way, or feeling fine or whatever, the same way that you throw your hands into a chef if you're going to a restaurant. But you're also returning to that restaurant because you know that, the carbonara there is fucking great. And every time I go there, the carbonara is fantastic. You know, that's the hard thing about being an entertainer, trying to evolve, because you need to make sure that your fans of your restaurant keep going to your restaurant, even though you might, or to your restaurant, and you might open new ones that has a new fusion, a new thing that you think that, if you like my pancakes, you might like my sushi as well, because it's sort of my style. But it's never a given. You can never take it for granted, because sometimes people don't even like sushi or pancakes or carbonara. So it's always a risk. It's always something it's a leap of faith that you're doing yourself, but you're also asking people to take your hand and jump with you. And so far it has been going well, but I never just count on it. Like, just keep continuing to happen. And especially over time, if you're lucky enough, you can sort of stick around long enough to become a nostalgia band where people sort of show up because you're old. But, we're not there yet. So what can happen also, which happens to most bands at some point, is that you're regarded as like, yesterday's news. You're not part of the new thing. And so there's a lot of things like that you're up against as well. And so never take anything for granted, but continue doing it.